The United States and Venezuela were thrust into crisis on Saturday after reports of a U.S. military operation in and around the Venezuelan capital triggered sharply conflicting claims about the fate of President Nicolás Maduro, raising urgent questions about sovereignty, international law, and regional stability. Loud explosions were heard before dawn in parts of Caracas, according to residents and local media, followed by widespread power outages and the visible movement of security forces across the city. Within hours, U.S. officials speaking on background said American forces had conducted a targeted operation aimed at detaining Maduro and senior figures in his inner circle. Venezuelan authorities rejected the account, calling it disinformation and an act of aggression. President Donald Trump said the United States had acted to protect its national security interests in combat transnational narcotics trafficking, describing the operation as precise and limited. He said Washington would support a political transition in Venezuela, though he did not provide details on timing or governance. The White House declined to release operational specifics, citing security concerns. Caracas responded with fury. Venezuela's foreign ministry said any U.S. military action on its soil would constitute a grave violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. Senior officials said the government remained in control and accused Washington of attempting regime change under the pretext of law enforcement. State television showed images of cabinet members meeting and urged citizens to remain calm. Independent verification of claims from either side proved difficult. Reuters was unable to confirm whether Maduro had been detained or removed from the country. Venezuelan officials said the president had not appeared publicly due to security concerns, while opposition figures said communications were disrupted across parts of the capital. Maduro, in power since 2013, has long been a target of U.S. sanctions and criminal indictments. U.S. prosecutors have accused him and close allies of conspiring with drug trafficking groups to flood the United States with cocaine. Allegations the Venezuelan leader has repeatedly denied as politically motivated. Washington has maintained multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to the arrest or conviction of senior Venezuelan officials. In Washington, administration officials said the latest actions followed years of diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, and failed negotiations. A senior U.S. official said the operation was coordinated across multiple agencies and designed to minimize civilian harm. This was not an occupation, the official said. It was a focused action, consistent with U.S. law enforcement and national security. Authorities, members of Congress, reacted along partisan lines. Some Republicans praised what they described as decisive action against a government they label a narc. Several Democrats questioned the legal basis for any unilateral use of force and said Congress had not authorized military action. Lawmakers from both parties called for immediate briefings. In Caracas, security forces established checkpoints near key government buildings and transportation hubs. Schools in several districts closed for the day, and flights were delayed or canceled. Lines formed outside supermarkets as residents sought supplies amid uncertainty. "We don't know what is happening," said one resident in eastern Caracas. "We are hearing many versions." Regional governments urged restraint. Brazil's foreign ministry said any violation of sovereignty would be unacceptable and warned that escalation could destabilize South America. Colombia called for dialogue and respect for international law, while Mexico emphasized non-intervention. The Organization of American States said it was monitoring developments closely. Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba condemned what they described as U.S. interference. Moscow said the use of force against the sitting head of state would set a dangerous precedent. Beijing urged all parties to avoid actions that could worsen humanitarian conditions in Venezuela, which has endured years of economic collapse, mass immigration, and shortages of basic goods. European leaders struck a cautious tone. Several governments said they were seeking clarification from Washington and Caracas and called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Diplomats said any durable solution would require negotiations among Venezuelans and international mediation. Legal experts said the situation raised complex questions. Under international law, the arrest or removal of a head of state by foreign forces without consent or a UN mandate would be highly controversial. U.S. officials have argued that criminal indictments and the designation of Venezuelan leaders as narcotics traffickers provide a legal basis for action, a view many scholars dispute. Markets reacted swiftly. Oil prices rose in early trading on concerns about supply disruptions, though gains were tempered by uncertainty over whether production would be affected. Venezuela holds some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, but output has declined sharply in recent years due to underinvestment and sanctions. The Venezuelan opposition, fragmented and weakened after years of repression and failed uprisings, responded cautiously. Some leaders said any transition must be peaceful and constitutional. Others warned against foreign intervention, arguing it could rally nationalist support for the government and undermine prospects for democratic change. Human rights groups called for protection of civilians and transparency. Amnesty International said all parties must respect due process and avoid collective punishment. The International Committee of the Red Cross said it stood ready to assist if humanitarian needs increased. As the day wore on, information remained fragmented. Social media was flooded with unverified images and claims, some later shown to be false or taken from unrelated events. Internet disruptions in parts of Venezuela complicated reporting and fueled speculation. In Washington, the Pentagon said it would provide updates when appropriate, but emphasized that operational security limited what could be disclosed. The State Department urged U.S. citizens in Venezuela to remain indoors and follow guidance from local authorities. For Venezuelans, the uncertainty revived memories of past crises, including the 2019 standoff, when opposition leader Juan Guaido declared himself interim president with U.S. backing, a move that failed to dislodge Maduro. Many fear renewed turmoil could deepen economic hardship and trigger another wave of migration. At the United Nations, diplomats prepared for emergency consultations. Several countries said they would seek a ceasefire, clarification of facts, and assurances against further escalation. The priority must be to prevent violence and protect civilians, said one Western diplomat. Whether the reported operation marks a turning point or another flashpoint in the long U.S.-Venezuela confrontation remains unclear. What is certain is that the episode has heightened tensions across the hemisphere and placed renewed scrutiny on the balance between national sovereignty, international law, and efforts to combat transnational crime. As night fell in Caracas, security forces remained deployed, and the government urged calm. In Washington, officials said their objective was stability and a political transition led by Venezuela. With facts still contested and emotions high, the coming days are likely to determine whether the crisis de-escalates through diplomacy or spirals into a broader confrontation.